So to help you successfully make the most out of this content, we're going to approach this through three main categories. Okay, the first is going to be framework. So this is information. This is where we're going to learn about the structure, the information, the psychology, and everything that we need to understand in order to start to apply this. Naturally, what comes next is practices. Practices are constantly changing and evolving. As we're discovering new things, we're going to try new things, right? But practices come from an understanding of the framework. And then finally, this third category is content that we're going to be focusing on, which we'll call development. And so these three different categories together is what's going to really bring this to life for you, right? But you're going to have growth and understanding in each of these three different categories. So this can be maybe a little abstract. So let's use a more concrete example of how, instead of applying this information to reinventing our organizations, let's apply this to something like fitness and health. When you're trying to improve your fitness and your health and your well-being, framework is when you start to study things like diet and exercise, right? This is where you start to understand about how your body works. You start to understand what kinds of fruits and vegetables are good for you. You start digging deep into the anatomy, right? Maybe you dig a little bit into, okay, these things are muscles and this is how they work and this is where they get energy from. This is how my digestive system works, right? That's framework. Framework is an understanding. It's an understanding of things as they are, and it gives you the structure to start to understand, okay, this is how things work. Now how can I access and use that information to be able to start to see results, right? So that's what practices are. Practices is when something starts to pull on information from the framework to apply it, right? So resistance training, right? So that recognizes, yeah, our muscles work in a certain way, and if I want to grow my muscles, right, I need to break them down and let them heal and grow, right? So resistance training applies some knowledge and information that we have from the stuff that we've learned in the framework, right? Same kind of thing with cardio. That's a different practice. It recognizes a different aspect of our anatomy and how our body works, and that running allows us, our cardiovascular system, to work and function and get better. So cardio applies that information. Same thing with meals and diet, right? These are all different examples of ways that you can apply and start to gain access or utilize the information that you have inside of the framework, okay? So development, what's that third kind of a weird category, development? What's that all about? So development is actually referring to your own internal development, right? So you could understand a lot about framework. You could understand a lot about how your body works and what kinds of diet and nutrition you need to have to be fit and to, see some results in the gym. And you could also understand and have some good practices, right? You could have some good habits of, you know what to do when you're in the gym. You know what to do when you're outside running, right? You could be familiar with those practices. But there's a whole variety of ways that we actually can approach exercise internally, right? So think about, here's a whole array of different ways that somebody could be motivated to exercise, right? One way could seriously be that, your doctor points at you and says, look, you're so out of shape that if you don't start exercising, it's going to kill you, right? I mean, that would motivate you, right? That would motivate you to some degree, right? I mean, I'm going to stop existing if I don't start to exercise. So I guess I better start doing it, right? Somebody else might approach exercise from a standpoint of something like, this is what everybody in my group is doing, right? Everybody in my group, they all go exercise. And so if I don't exercise, I'm not going to be maybe a good part of the group, right? Continuing, there could be maybe somebody who likes to exercise because, hey, I've noticed that I'm actually kind of good at running, or I've noticed that I'm kind of good at this thing. And so I want to exercise because I feel like I want to get better at that thing. There's a certain sense of achievement, right, in it. And then somebody else might approach exercise from a standpoint of, yeah, I exercise because it gives me access to something. It allows me to enjoy a certain kind of lifestyle. And so I exercise because it brings me some sense of purpose. There's a ton of different ways, right, that you could be motivated to exercise. And all of these different ways are going to give you different results. Some of those little levels of motivation maybe aren't going to pull through in certain kinds of situations where others might. So that's kind of the power that goes inside of the development category. It's going to give you a better understanding of where you are and how you can be able to apply these things in a way that's going to be more powerful. So if you take each of these three elements of these three categories and think of it like how you would build a house, right? Framework is the structure. This is like the wiring. This is where all the cabling and the wiring goes throughout the whole house, right? As you build a network of information, this allows you to get more and more reach and reach more and more places, but it's just a structure, right? Practices, these are kind of like the outlets, right? This is where you're going to be able to plug things in. This is where you're going to apply it, and you're going to see it in action, right? And development is a lot like, it's actually the energy that's pumping through that network. So there's different levels of energy, right, that you're going to be able to put through a network like that. And so the development category is going to help you start to make the most out of the information and the applications of that information in this resource.